Okay, I want to explain what I call pre-cyberpunk. Cyberpunk is when you have computer implants in the body. Things that evolved to that is what we're doing with computers now. Basically, going from what's here, the ENIAC and UNIVAC. You can Google these things to get pictures of them. You'll see people working inside them. Like they're computers that are multiple rooms, huge, and things like that. So I think these are the first two computers using vacuum tubes instead of let's say transistors. I'm getting that right. Anyway, go back here. With HTML and the graphic user interface and the computers becoming more powerful, things will become more user friendly. Have here the interface becomes more personal and intimate. The information is depicted in a more complex and nonlinear manner. Keep in mind you have like a filing cabinet, or I think you call it the Dewey Decimal System in libraries and things like that, or flipping through a magazine from one page to the other. You'll have a glossary, an index, and a table of contents and all that. That's just kind of like the primitive version of the search engine for the rest of the book or the rest of the magazine, if you will. And the interface is supposed to be more instinctual and intuitive. One huge flaw with a lot of software and buttons and menus and stuff is that whenever it's called counterintuitive, meaning you basically have to know the instructions to be able to use it because it doesn't come to you naturally. It's how the average person thinks. And something that is the theory of my software that I want to do when information is handled by theme and concept, the non-tangible and the metaphysical is depicted. Okay, now that I've babbled about that, like I said, check out these two computers in Google. You could read tons and tons about them. Very primitive machines. It was one person. It's like you might as well have been standing next to a house. Okay, then you have the quaint little interface, the desktop PC, or the personal computer, or in the 80s the phrase was home computer. Something that was, these were, you have mini computers, which was, I'd have to get more of a in-depth digging for. I see the things that fall in line more than that, but then these are the microcomputers, the microchip and large-scale integration and all this kind of stuff. You're able to get a machine with that kind of power that could fit on top of a human's desk. And now today we have smartphones and everything which can fit in the palm of your hand. And a smartphone has more juice than a home computer did in 1982. Here's the time. Instead of Man of the Year, or Woman of the Year, or People of the Year, it was Machine of the Year. So it wasn't even human. It's one thing you have gender or plurality or something like that, but this is not even that. It's Machine of the Year. As you see in the top left-hand corner, January 3rd, 1983, the computer moves in. You see it's more of a quaint interface. Then you had the graphics interface with the mouse pointer and icons instead of just the text commands, which were kind of tedious to know. Now this is the scene from Giant Mnemonic. That's pretty cool. This is supposed to be in the year like 2057, 2053 or something like that. It's up there. I'm going to confuse the Minority Report. Maybe it's like 2030 something, but I forget the year. But anyway, I'm about to make this little demo that I narrated with user interface scenes in Giant Mnemonic. I spliced together only the user interface scenes. So you don't see Keanu Reeves or anything. It's just this environment. I'm going to put that clip right here, and I'm going to finish after that clip. Okay, intro to Giant Mnemonic. He gets in. That would be like your starting page, I guess you want to call it. There's this pyramid icon that he's playing with. Cracks open the globe. Okay, turns into a flat map. Dial tone to Beijing. Selects it just by tapping on it. This little puzzle deal, a little cheesy effect in the movie, but you can't quite get in. It zaps him, and then all of a sudden you can get in by playing with it. I guess like the futuristic version of CAPTCHA or something. Gets in. Now notice when he gets into the hotel manifest or whatever, he'll crack it open. Okay, that was kind of quick. He selects a cell, brings it to him closer. And the movie he did with his voice, he said online translation. So sometimes there's voice commands. Unfolds a map right here. Same thing again. Gets a window, brings it to him, skims through some cells, picks one and emphasizes it. There you go. Okay, that was my little rundown with Giant Mnemonic with the user interface scenes in the movie. Going through all this, Here's how the desktop looks and all that. Now, one thing that was lacking, as you saw the icons, when he cracked open the globe like an egg to flatten it out to a map, gets into the hotel manifest and he cracks it open with his hands to reveal the cells of the rooms, or a fax buffer after, I think. And he's scrolling through the menu of the fax buffer cells at certain times and all that kind of stuff. And he selects on one, brings it to himself, goes down to extract it or get it to open up whatever. Here's what was lacking. Right-clicking on something. Under the Windows environment, or the traditional GUI, you don't let's see, do what you have to do with one action or one click. You have one click or one action that gives you the menu to that object, to that icon, or in the case if it's like a file or a text, video, audio, something like that, whatever, or execute an executable, whatever. And you have your options down here. You can open with whatever. If it's a picture, you want to rotate it, edit with the GIMP, set a desktop background, blah, blah, blah. Oh, you guys know this already. What happens is that I'm stressing that factor that I said earlier. The interface has to be more intuitive and more intimate. I'll get to the hardware later. But this is something to where it's supposed to be more natural and instinctual. Like you grab an egg and you crack it over the side of a dish to spill the contents in, and you throw away the eggshell. When you grab a hammer, you don't press a button to make it swing down. You just actually swing down with your hand. Video games now in the VR environment, like with Oculus Rift and everything, instead of having the console controls where you press buttons and trigger the fire, it's an actual plastic gun you're holding to mimic the gun in the game to be more realistic. And for those of you programmers out there, you know that object-oriented design, when you have basically objects that are, as far as I'm concerned, just a multifaceted variable, is supposed to resemble the real situation for which you're coding. So if you're doing a database of students and you have one object class, the class contains 30 students, and each student has multiple facets to them: age, GPA, major, height, whether they're a freshman or a senior, whatever. So this is something that there's no taskbar, there's no start button like in Windows. It's just all the icons are just there, and you want to grab something, you just do it to it directly. So instead of getting all the options in the menus, you click on options of the menu, you click on, it's just done directly with your hands. As you see here, he has the gloves that are on his hands as opposed to holding a mouse. It's wrapped around his hands. And he has, as he said in the movie, the Thompson iPhones. Now these are EYE, like the I you see with, iPhones. This was before Apple had their first iPhone with the letter I, lowercase I, iPhone. So a lot of people were confused about that, and the clips in the movie and all that, saying this movie goes too far back for it to have been iPhones. It was EYE, like the eyes that you see with, the iPhones. So anyway, it wraps around his head. The gear is strapped to your body. Wraps around you, it's more intimate. That's why I call it a more intimate interface, more personal. Now they have the VR suits that you wear, and the ARAG vest, and the core vest, where it has a, when you're shot in the game or something like that, it mimics and simulates the bullet hitting you in the chest. So again, it's more immersive that way. So more personal, more intimate, more immersive. That's what we're going with pre-cyberpunk. And of course, cyberpunk being when you have the actual computer implants in your body. That you will just hook up a cable to your brain, you're thinking into the computer becomes part of your brain. But that's cyberpunk. I'm talking about pre-cyberpunk. And again, a little close-up look at the same thing. The gear is strapped in your body, and it's more, like I say, personal, intimate, that kind of stuff. Now, I had this little timeline thing here. I've yet to see someone come up with a better name of the times that we are. It was agrarian and industrial. Industrial is post-agrarian, but usually you want to define an era, what it is, instead of what it's after. But supposedly we're in the post-industrial age, and I have a little rundown, not so much of a chart, but a list of things I'll itemize about that in a bit. But we're getting to pre-cyberpunk, to where computers are more intimately interwoven into our lives. Some people feel that social media is the second incarnation of the internet, or the web. Web 2.0 is called sometimes, or some context I heard it said it to be that. So I have here present 2018, the year of this video being shot. Before you get into the actual implants inside the body that are actually merged into the body, that kind of stuff. It's sometimes called wetware, that kind of stuff. So that was a little bit of overlapping region where we've left the industrial age and we're approaching the cyberpunk age. We're in between. So it's post-industrial and pre-cyberpunk kind of overlapping a bit. Now here's the things I was talking about earlier. Now one thing, different historians and economists are going to word it in different ways, sociologists and stuff. It can be pretty interesting stuff. But I have here that the goods were pretty straightforward and linear as far as the demand, supply, that kind of stuff. I have here the industries: coal, lumber, wool, food, or the steam engine or something like that. And there's always things to business. I'm sure it wasn't simple by all standards or all contexts. Maybe more simple than today, but it was pretty much straightforward. With computers, it's like if something's going to be obsolete or phased out, coal will burn any day of the century or the millennium. That's it. A floppy disk is going to be obsolete after a certain amount of time. Lumber, I mean, any nail goes into any cut wood you can get, and food can be eaten no matter what. A banana will never go obsolete. Food will never be obsolete or phase out of society. It's just there, like water or air. But with computers and electronic standards, this kind of stuff, these things become phased out. Barely anyone uses VHS anymore or VCR anymore. So, or they're 8-track or cassette for that matter. The vinyl albums kind of have hung out as a novelty more or less, but not as far as a mainstream use thing. Corporations were known. I have your longevity. Corporations were known for. Let me see something here. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I had these little boxes I drew. Okay. Right here. Corporations known for longevity. You had old, wrinkly, rich white males in suits incorporated, established 1885, and they lasted 100 years. The railroad industries and blah blah blah, steel industries and kind of stuff. It wasn't this going out of business every 3 years thing like it is today. Things in society commentary. It's post-agrarian, okay, the industrial age. Mass marketing not fine-tuned. I know that mass marketing today with advertisement are hyper-tuned to the senses today. They had the cover of Cosmo. They'll take I don't know the stat being a literal figure, like 5 hours to make up a model to put on the cover of Cosmo. That's not even counting the digital editing and the airbrushing they do, all this kind of stuff. Brand names, I don't think have quite took root, or as we know them today, to be hip and trendy instead of just whether it's not the quality of it sucks or not. More free time than the agrarian workday. It's supposed to be like you work 12 or 14-hour days and all kind of stuff, or maybe even in this time, it was still 12 or 14 hours a day at the mill or the factory, the conveyor belts, wherever you worked, but it went until later. But maybe more free time than agrarian, I'm not sure. They say you used to work cans at can't. When you can see in the morning, you can't see at night. Fewer college grads. College degree wasn't as mainstream back then. And if you did have a degree, you were pretty much guaranteed success in the future. And entertainment wasn't evolved yet. The mass entertainment, the technology goes into fine-tuning music and videos and movies, all kind of stuff. The monster special effects and everything. I have here post-industrial. One way I've had it worded to me is that in post-industrial society, it's more services are provided is the main thing rather than goods. Things that are less tangible, based off of an action, more than a physical commodity you can consume or utilize. You have a mass information, so people call it the information age. I think it started in the 1700s, the printing press, I believe. I don't know if the printing press got more mainstream, but it was a while back. It was centuries ago. And you have instability of businesses when you have buyouts and mergers and sellouts and all this kind of stuff. In a society, a college degree wasn't as promising as it was before. Overpopulated cities and pop culture. Trends and fads and fashion tends to take root. Keeping up with the Joneses type thing. You always want to outbuy your neighbor and that kind of stuff. And pre-cyberpunk. As I said earlier, computers and interface are more intimate. Arguably, we have an information overload. I had a microbiology teacher that said we have hairs in the inside of our ears that are having to do with the way we hear, and I don't know what exact role that it plays. But today we have so much going on that we listen to. The hairs are battered down rather than standing up because they're so overloaded. Or that was just from one source, that teacher that I had. Mass marketing is more extreme. Job instability, they say today to stay afloat, you've got to know 3 trades, not just one. Because nothing is guaranteed forever or to be consistent. You will be missing meals if you don't have some type of game plan or more aggressively together, so just being good at just one thing. Corporate instability, buyouts and mergers and sellouts, that kind of stuff. Subculture is more pronounced. Are you a jock, a frat boy? Are you a nerd? Are you a goth or emo, geek, whatever the hell? Types of music and that kind of stuff. First world problems. Woodall Yankovic made a video about that, kind of making fun of that. Oh, the computers now. Hacking, piracy, evolved white-collar crime, and you get into surveillance ethics. The Big Brother is watching you with all the technology that we have. So in augmented reality, you'll have a desk like this and face, and I have my website ultrafaction.com right here, and you have the icons over here. If you have the like the Meta or the Meta 2 headgear, you look through a clear visor and you see everything, but the icons can pick up what you're looking at and associate information with those things. So the bulb to replace it in this lamp is $5, and the shavings of the pencil and this pencil sharpener are 85% full in the chamber. So that's one thing with having to do with augmented reality, is that it isn't a completely virtual environment. It's icons imposed on top of the real world. And that stat I have in one of the videos, by 2020, which is only 2 years from now, this is early 2018, augmented reality is supposed to be generating $90 billion in revenue, and virtual reality is only going to be generating $30 billion in revenue. Okay, the way that we handle information and everything done with computers tends to resemble a filing cabinet. You see these documents right here, this kind of stuff. I have the first automobiles look like horse carriages. You can Google the Ford Model Ts and see that. When creating a new standard, we have to start with old rules, but take it from there as we rewrite them with the new technology. So cars got more aerodynamic over the next century. It took a while to evolve. And it was for practical reasons and traveling and everything. It wasn't just the shape of it to look cool or anything. It's supposed to have a real reason. And with computers and everything, that the way we do things and say things have to do that we're still messing with a filing cabinet. We're going through files and folders, as if you had folders in a filing cabinet, So that's one thing as we take off going to this 3D VR environment and everything, those old rules are going to kind of fade away. Now I have here nothing that I haven't said before on my website that I have laid out and stuff. This is where icons in a 3D environment would be depicted, but the information is depicted with a common denominator or a primary denominator being the theme of the concept. You learn about public relations or campaign finance reform being an issue, or concepts such as alienated minorities, a specific group, the NRA, the EPA, legislation from one politician, Al Gore legislation, environmentalism, McGovern liberals, he was a Democrat in the 70s, I think, and lawsuit ethics. Those are concepts. When you have information falling under that and you manipulate the concepts, as far as I define environmentalism this way, and all these articles that are pre-tagged and these subsets, you can extract or include as you see fit. And then you're polishing off your definition of environmentalism. You might do it with a few 100,000 articles, but that's how it gets more and more fine-tuned as you are looking for exact information. You might say, I want every lobbyist who has have had interaction with Al Gore over the last 20 years that also donated to this company or cause, cross-referenced with all the links to these environmental hazards causing global warming. So you're looking for very, very specific information, a lot of overlapping subsets. With this kind of software, you could just do that because so many people have gone over the articles all the time before that it'll be pre-categorized and pre-polished and pre-sorted for you so that you can get to it very easily, to extract and include very easily. And here's another thing, drawing I have. Basically the same thing in a 3D environment. You'll have concepts and notions laid out, drawn out, different types of icons, whatever, and manipulating with your goggles and gloves in a VR environment. Now, trying to get more aggressive in that, if you have concepts such as, or factors such as unemployment rate, party in the White House that is currently in power in the White House, year of the election cycle, is it midterm elections, in between midterm elections, or is it a presidential election year? Money being used to lobby, the amount of money, or where it's coming from, the size of the budget, the government's going to spend this year, this fiscal year, and blah, blah, blah. Public opinion on a certain issue and a specific issue of that. All these are factors, and I'm thinking down the line, there can be assertions or gambling on the idea that it can be political algebra formulas that will say, well, when you have this certain party in power over the 20th century, the numbers of the economy always went this direction because of this and that. Well, what about these other factors that didn't have this and that? Was this administration's fault? Was it a social problem? Was the administration cause the problem? Did the problem cause the administration? What encouraged this politician to win this election or lose this election? Why did this certain party lose the White House? Why did this certain party gain Congress or lose Congress this certain election year? All these things coming up. It's very complex, but arguably, I think there could be some formula pounded out for this kind of stuff to where when you're trying to debate and prove something, if it's more destructive, people would have a little more of an insight. You might not always change how you feel on the issue, but the details to your beliefs can change fundamentally. And I think that's when real progress can happen. You hear certain nightmare scenarios that you'll have a real good bill, but some politician will sneak in some real bad item to it because he wants it passed, and then they refuse to pass the bill because there's only one bad thing to pass. They say, well, you screwed education. No, I don't want this to happen, blah, blah, blah. Then you have some governors have the line item veto, which you can just extract certain details of the bill and all that. But I don't think the president has that power. I know that Bush Sr. asked for it in a State of the Union address one time, I think I'd seen, but I don't think it ever happened. So these things get very, very nasty and complex fast. So arguably, when things are more segmented in the way they're analyzed and everything and categorized, you could get into micro components and subsets to clean up some of the mess. David Kredick, which was Newt Gingrich's right-hand man whenever he had AmericanSolutions.com, I have the quote on my website, that our political system is nasty and messy. It's a paper-based institution that no longer works. The bureaucracies and that kind of stuff. Now, an intangible thing is hate. But think if you could see it, like the person, like somebody just standing in a room and Joe hates Fred or something like that. You would picture it being red and fiery like this. So this is arguably another dimension. I did a little digging on the fourth dimension on YouTube. You can Google that as well. You get into the hypercube and you get into multiple dimensions after that. It gets really complex. Now, this thing is going to be long enough as it is, so I want to take on that tangent. Where arguably the metaphysical could be some other plane or some other level or dimension. Here's the video game Titanfall, first-person shooter, and you see these yellow lit-up skeletons. Those are players that are behind a wall or a structure that you can't normally see. But whenever you have the echo vision, which is a special ability you get unlocked or that you earn, and then you could use at any point in the game you want, called echo vision, you can see your enemies behind structures and behind walls. And so you can shoot them, you can get around to shoot them because you know where they are to get around to shoot them in the first place. Arguably, that's another dimension or fourth dimension. or not the fourth dimension, but a fourth dimension. You're seeing something that is beyond the conventional space, because you're seeing through the material. So the immaterial can also be considered, the seventh dimension or the 128th dimension, who knows. But that can be a pretty interesting thing. Supposedly the fourth dimension is the passage of time. But there's different, I don't know, aspects when you can look at that kind of stuff. Or the fifth dimension or whatever. And this is cyberpunk. This is the Borg in Star Trek. This is whenever a drone became self-aware in an individual sense. And as you see, the computer implants are on the body. The drone, the physical flesh is fused with the implants inside the body. You have that eye prosthesis that is latched on, but that would be cyberpunk. So those of you who've seen in science fiction, you usually have crystals on the eye or something altered in the hand, because it's how you interface with information, with machines. Like RoboCop, when he had the, for lack of a better word, the spike that came out of his fist, but it was wired to his brain. So when he plugged the spike into a computer, something that he saw with his own eyes played on the computer screen. Like his brain was like a living video recorder. So anyway, but that's cyberpunk, not pre-cyberpunk. So that's about the rundown for pre-cyberpunk, as I say here. The first three is what's happening already. The fourth one is something that I want to do in my software, with information is organized by concept and theme. The interface becomes more personal and intimate. Information is depicted in a more complex and nonlinear manner. The interface is supposed to be more instinctual and intuitive, and the non-tangible and metaphysical are depicted.